Sean Connery plays a thief who immediately starts planning his next job the second he's released from prison. He puts together a team including a young Christopher Walken. This one is a heist movie that explores the emerging surveillance technology of the early 70s. Join us as we discuss The Anderson Tapes. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Is it right to steal from insurance companies?
This is a movie podcast. We're working through Sidney Lumet season, and today we're looking at the 1971 film The Anderson Tapes, which, funny enough, makes it a bit of a double feature with Sean Connery starring in both this and the last movie. But this is a heist movie about a convict who's a safecracker who's just getting out of prison, but he's immediately planning his next heist, his next gig, which involves a fancy apartment building. And that's basically the plot. Builds a group of characters together who are going to pull the heist off, and there's ins and outs. But as the title would suggest, there's a lot of focus on the idea of surveillance and people listening, watching, and that kind of thing. So we'll get into it. And also, just FYI, David, I am recording this podcast. I'm not trying to be sly about it.
I thought we were just having a personal conversation between each other. We were just discussing our favorite movies. But Thank you for making me aware.
Yeah. Didn't you think it was weird that I'd always say, hey, go to Patreon and support the show at the end? Was that not?
I thought, I used to donate a lot more to Patreon. I thought you were just trying to guilt me.
So yeah, we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll get into the spoilers after we give you warning. If you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button, or you can give us 5 stars on your podcast app. And if you want to support the show, you can do that over at Patreon or via YouTube membership. It helps us out and keeps the show going. You get some bonuses, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, we'll get into it. I assume you hadn't really seen or heard about this one before we set up to watch it now?
Honestly, this is one of the ones where because behind the scenes, we are filming a bunch of these Lumet ones pretty close back to back. So I didn't even really have time to check out the IMDb page before going into this. I was like, all right, rent the movie, watch the movie. I didn't even know what I was getting into. So no idea going in.
Yeah. I think I had a vague. I may have seen part of it once. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But I think I had a vague idea of something about it. Although, to be honest, if I did see a good chunk of it, I had forgotten a lot of it because it was just vague memories of a few things. But yeah. So Sean Connery plays a convict who's let out of prison at the start of the movie and is immediately planning his next gig. So we'll get into everything. David, what did you think of the Anderson Tapes?
So for anyone who's been watching the season, you'll know that the last 3 that we had have all been top tier stuff. It's all been fantastic, including the last one, Sean Connery on the Hill. Did a great job. Really loved it. Very disappointed by this one. I don't know how best to explain it without spoiling a whole bunch of stuff that happens. But essentially what it comes down to for me is that I never really felt like I felt a core theme to this movie. Ostensibly, it's surveillance. Ostensibly, it is the idea that you come out into this world, you've been away for 10 years, and I'm sure at that point, the difference between 55 to 65 in terms, or no, sorry, this was the 70s, 61 to 71 in terms of general surveillance around in the culture, it probably was a big shakeup. It was probably a big thing that they could have explored deeply. But by the time we hit, I would say even the halfway mark of the movie, I don't feel like it was a focus at all. I don't feel like there was any real reason for this surveillance thing. And the rest of the movie plays out as I won't say generic, but your pretty typical heist sort of movie. Honest to God, by the time it finished, I don't really know what it was trying to say. It feels like it was trying to pack a punch with something. It feels like it ends with a, wow, look at that sort of moment. But I didn't feel anything for it. It didn't feel like it built up properly for me. Acting wise, it's fine. Shot composition wise, it's fine. And I did feel tension in the third act, but that's only from the heist perspective, not really from a story structure perspective. So yeah, overall, I was very disappointed considering how hard the past 3 have really been.
I mean, yeah, I think this is easily the worst movie of the season. You're compared to the last 3 because we were especially positive, but even the first 2, we were still pretty positive on those. They're still good movies, and I think this is the only one of the season that I would say is not a good movie. And it's not... I appreciate kind of like some of the things that he's trying. Like Lumet here is like trying to do some things to tie into the surveillance that are kind of ballsy, but I don't think they worked very well. But I do appreciate that he's trying to do something. I kind of agree that the ending's trying to be kind of poignant or to have a bit of a gut punch, and it just doesn't land, because I think first and foremost, maybe the reason more than anything that makes this not work, the one thing that all of these other movies have had this season, I mean all of them, every single one, all 5 movies we have done before this point have had strong characters and strong character writing, and the character drama has been exceptionally across the board. That is completely lacking in this movie. These characters are pretty thin, and there's not really a whole lot to them. They give a couple of details to the main character of Anderson, but other than that, like, it feels like everyone is pretty wafer thin. And, you know, sure, I'm happy to see a young Christopher Walken. That's nice. Like, you know, it's a nice little surprise where you don't know he's going to be there, and you're like, whoa, it's Christopher Walken.
No, that was absolutely... I'm watching this movie. I'm watching, there's the 3 of them. There's Sean Connery, there's an old guy, and there's a young guy. And this young guy's got like tousled blonde hair, and I'm like not taking a lot of note of it. And then, you know, 5 minutes in, he turns around, talks to Sean Connery, he goes, "America, what a country." And I'm like, nobody talks like that, until I finally locked in on his face, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Christopher Walken.
I have to say, I knew as soon as the camera panned past him in the opening shot, I'm like, oh, that's Christopher Walken. I see him right there. Ding, ding, ding.
I didn't even recognize him, though.
My brain was going, maybe I've just seen him this young or around the same age in a couple other things, so I caught him quicker. But funny enough, we just did a Christopher Walken movie on Ace in the last couple of weeks. We did Brainstorm, of course, starring him.
Yep.
But so there's obviously Martin Balsam's in this, who was in 12 Angry Men. Although his character was leaving a lot to be desired, I thought, in this one. I think the characters, like I say, are pretty thin, and I'll be honest, I don't even think the tension's that good in the third act. I think the heist plays out in such a weird way that I don't really feel all that... Like, they set up the pieces that should be exciting. We set up that there's a wild card that might get violent. We know that a lot of the other characters aren't okay with that. We know that there's like a secondary kind of level to the job, right? Which obviously we won't spoil yet, but we know all these things are in play, and yet somehow the way it plays out is just so mundane that like even like the police side of it, once they're getting involved, it just feels like I'm watching people bumble around. There's no great sense of momentum to it. I honestly think it's lacking tension, and then, you know, on top of all that, and this is before I even get to the whole gimmick, if you want to call it that, of the movie, where it does this thing where it'll, like, something will happen and it'll cut to either back or later when the recording is being listened to, or whatever. And it kind of does a lot of that in the third act as well, although with that it's less recordings and more like when people are giving their statements to the police. So it'll do this thing where you get this really obnoxious sound effect, and the freeze will frame, and then it'll cut to like people explaining what happened. And I get the idea of building suspense over like teasing certain things that happened before we see all of it, but I don't think this successfully teased anything. I don't think this did anything to make me more excited or interested in what was happening.
No, there was a bit where one guy was talking, and the camera very specifically shows like a hospital gurney being moved out from behind, and we recognize that this takes place after like the heist has happened, that this is people giving their police reports. So they don't show who's in the gurney. So that's the tension, theoretically, is who is it that's there? Is it someone part of our gang that we've been following? Is it some innocent who got hurt, which they make very clear they don't want to hurt innocents. So it's a question of, did this all go wrong? I get a little bit of attention from that. I do see what they're going with it, though. But you're right in that everything is played in this sort of bumbling way. It feels as if it's being played more for laughs than it is being played more for tension. And so when it gets to those sequences, you kind of aren't even thinking about it. You kind of already dropped this idea of, oh, I wonder who was in the gurney. And it's just more of a, oh, isn't it funny that this woman is so lonely in her apartment that she's welcoming in these robbers into her house, and she's like asking to make them tea and such. It's a strange tone to strike, and I just don't think it really worked.
Yeah, there's a weird sort of comedic tone to certain scenes that were just not clicking for me, and not all of them have it, but there's a moment when the police get involved in the third act where like a commander like calls over a sergeant or whoever and says, "Hey, you're going to do this." And this actor playing the policeman who's been given orders, right, is a character actor named Garrett Morris, who I couldn't have told you his name without looking it up, but I know his face. Like, I've seen him in stuff. Okay. Apparently, he was an Ant-Man, for example. So he was, he's been in movies as recent as that. But he's one of those guys where as soon as I heard his voice, I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I know this guy's voice. But the way like he was just saying yes, sir, as if it's meant to be played for laughs, that this white cop is like saying, hey, you're getting this really shitty job of having to climb onto the roof and like, jump on, and it's like, yes, sir. Like it's played for this sort of laugh of like how ridiculous this is that he's passing on this silly job, and we're not going to be in danger, but you're going to take all the danger on. That's the way it plays, and I'm like, this isn't that funny, but you're trying to be kind of funny, and it didn't click with me.
Yeah, I have expected them to start playing like Police Academy music, like during the sequence. It's just like, what are we doing here? What's the tone? What's going on here?
Yeah.
But no, the big thing for me, and this is the part that really gets me, is the theme of surveillance, because I don't think it's spoilers to say the moment that he gets out of the place, he starts trying to set up the job again. And the thing that keeps happening, the thing for the entire first act, is that every single person that he goes to is under surveillance. Not him himself, but everyone else via different organizations and different things. Like the IRS is one of them. FBI is a different one. They're all keeping tabs on the people that he's going to set up this job. And it sets up this idea that like, okay, he was screwed before it even began because all of these people are already onto him. Everyone knows about this job that's going down. But by the time we hit the second act, you very quickly realize it doesn't matter. It's not part of the plot. It does not impact anything else that happens from that point forward. And it's only once we get to the end that they kind of go back to it in a way to try to do their little like, oh, this was all part of a bigger meaning. This was all part of a bigger thing. And I don't know what they're trying to say. It doesn't feel like it was ever actually there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get what they're trying to say, but not because the movie does a good job with it. I can just kind of deduce what the idea is, but it's not because the movie actually like sets it up and makes me feel it as it's playing out. Because like you said, as soon as you start noticing him looking at cameras, and it's played into this idea that he's been gone for 10 years, and I imagine that a lot of electronics had advanced significantly between 61 and 71. A lot of things were probably a lot more common. Things like alarms are even brought up as being a relatively, obviously places had alarms, but houses having alarms is a little bit newer. That's a little bit more common than it was before. And it's like, okay, this is how things have changed, and he's noticing these cameras, and he almost, his character, like the one thing I'll say about the movie is it does set up this character trait that he gets sort of a thrill from the challenge of like, for him it's not even about the loot itself, it's not about being rich necessarily, it's, the movie literally opens with like a sort of psychiatry tape of him in prison, talking about how he basically got off and cracking safes. It was like getting an erection as he was, dialing the numbers in and whatnot.
I wish you were exaggerating. No, he's literally equating it to sex. He's just like, yes, no, it's more of a seduction than anything.
At one point, he even says it's non-consensual, and I'm watching my wording very carefully for YouTube's sake. But he straight up says that, and then like he doesn't look very thrilled that he's listening to this tape at the start, obviously, and he grills out the prison psychiatrist for making a big song and dance about him leaving, but like right away, it sort of sets that character trait up, and that's fine. That's a solid character trait to start off on. He's addicted to the thrill of the mission, the heist, the planning, the seeing if he can pull it off, all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. This idea that he's obsessed with that. Lots of movies are about main characters who can't give up that thing they're addicted to. That isn't like a normal addiction. It's something very specific that they have made a part of who they are, and that is perfectly solid. But the movie instead is just the most boring heist movie you've ever seen, with just like, I don't know, like casing the joint, doing all the, like, those parts are supposed to be fun in a heist movie where you're sort of trying to figure out how they're going to pull it off, and they set up obstacles. Like, think of, and I'm not saying it should feel like a Mission Impossible movie, but think of how in those movies, when they're doing the big heist sequences in the middle of most of them, where they'll do a good job usually of setting up, this is how difficult it's going to be, this is what the obstacles are, this is how we're going to try and get past this. And I feel like, because all it really, like, amounts to, even with all the planning they kind of do, all it really is putting on some mass and pointing some guns at people, and that's just not that exciting. I thought early on they're going to try and do all this when everyone's out of the apartment building, and that's going to be the challenge, and it ended up just being, oh no, we're just wearing masks and waving guns about.
There's a bit that whenever he's explaining the plan to people, he's basically like, yeah, we're gonna back a truck up into the place and take everything they got, and I was like, okay, he's simplifying it down for the sake of, we don't want to go into the whole plan right now. No, that's it. He just gets out with a truck and they go in and they just start robbing people. And it's not even a thing of like, at one point they specifically have him say, like, I want to know the names of all the maids. I want to know everybody's schedules. I want to know everything about this place. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's going to make sure to wait until like all the stars align and everyone is out of the apartments and he's able to swoop in completely undone. No, like every single one of these apartments is full with the people in it, and he just goes in and basically says, I've got a gun, give me your stuff.
yeah honestly, it's actually kind of spectacular just how much this does not work, and it just shows that no matter how good the director is, and it's this, I think if I didn't know later movies by Lumet, I would say, oh, is this the start of his downward slope? Because a lot of directors have that thing where they're great for like a decade, 2 decades even, but then they kind of have a cooling off period where they maybe they lose a bit of interest, they're not trying as hard, and they kind of, go down a little bit. I'm looking at, Brian De Palma, who's got a couple of great decades, and then it starts to peter out, and you're like,
right.
But no, that's not true with Lumet at all. Lumet's got some big classics in the 70s. Like, he's still got bangers in him. It's just, this one is just a bit of a, and to be fair, we have skipped over some movies that weren't available to us, and some of those, presumably the reason why they've not been as lovingly restored and made available as much of these other ones is because maybe they aren't as great. So maybe this is just an example of, this is one that has survived in the mainstream right now, but just isn't as good as the other big ones that have been getting more of the attention. So
also, I just pulled up the writers. One of the writers has done like nothing else. He's got 2 other credits. The other one is Frank Pearson, who this one was sandwiched smack dab in between. He wrote the screenplay for Cool Hand Luke and Dog Day Afternoon. So clearly some high talent here.
Yeah, and Dog Day Afternoon is Lumet. So, I mean, even together, they're going to do some magic, because that movie's fantastic. And that's not going to be on this season. We're saving that for season 2, everyone.
Yep.
Season 2.
Gotta get you to come back for some reason.
Yeah. We have to have a banger in season 2. It's important. So, no, it's just, this happens sometimes with movies in Hollywood, where the stars align, where you've got like a great star, you've got a great director, you've got a great writer, you've got like the studio willing to back it with all the money they want, and somehow you put all the pieces together and you're like, oh, this is actually like the worst thing any of them have made somehow. And it does happen every so often, where sometimes you think, oh, this has to be amazing because everyone involved is spectacular, but then it's just, it's somewhere along the way, it's mainly the script in this case, but something whiffed, and we're left with something that just doesn't captivate me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. No, honestly, this is one where, because we've been dealing with Lumet getting a good 2 hours to work through things, this is one that I felt could have benefited from being longer. I don't know if it would have been used wisely, but I do feel like a lot of what I was disliking about it is that it feels like it wasn't showing me the best parts. And so I don't think it was cut down for time. I think he had as much time as he wanted to work with, but I would have liked it to maybe expand out to be a little bit longer than what it was.
Yeah, it does almost make me wonder, was there some dispute that they had to cut it up for, or is it just the script? And it probably is just the script, but yeah, it is, because it wouldn't be that shocking, even with Lumet where he was at this time in his career. Studios of being pissy with big directors, even when you think, why could they possibly be arguing with this person after they've made, these last, 5 critically acclaimed movies? But it does happen. It does happen where they don't act with sense or reason for whatever the purpose is. But Anyway,
I looked up on Wikipedia here. The only thing it's saying for any sort of like post-production issues was that apparently Columbia was not happy with the original concept for the ending of the film. And I guess it was either changed or refilmed, but it doesn't say whether that was pre-production, post-production. That was the only thing that was listed as a definite change, though.
Okay. Well, with that said, I think we'll get into spoilers then, so we can talk about it more in depth. We've been dancing around a little bit, but let's do it. So, spoilers for the Anderson tapes. You have been warned, and I'll be honest, I don't think this is going to be that long a conversation compared to some of these other ones, because there's large stretches of this where I really don't feel like anything interesting is happening. Like, obviously, you assume there is. You assume that certain parts are going to be interesting, and there's the heist itself, I think, is mostly kind of dull. The opening.
I mean, yeah, I'm scrolling through right now. The first thing that I could even think is interesting is about 10 minutes in. Everything before that is just set up, and then after that 10-minute mark, it probably takes until, God, I don't know, 40 minutes in before we hit the next interesting bit. Like, it's so much of just meandering about and setting up characters.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing if the characters, like, him going around to convince people to, like, come on board the job. Like, because the opening of the movie, after he gets out of prison and he's with young Christopher Walken and the old guy who they just call Pop, they go to a bus station and, like, they do a little thing here where it shows they're still, like, sort of got that prisoner mentality where they all stand up straight when, like, the security guard comes over, because it looks suspicious, like they're maybe robbing the old man, and they're actually just looking through his pockets to try and help him because he has nowhere to go. But they come over and he's like, and they all just sort of stand up straight like they're being called to attention. But there's that. But then we follow Sean Connery and he goes to this fancy apartment building. He's noticing the cameras everywhere. That's what his eyes going to. But he's here because his girlfriend is here, right? This is where we introduce his love interest for the movie, and we spend a good bit of time in the first half of the movie with this relationship of, like, them being a little playful. They immediately go and have sex, and then she dumps her, what I thought was a boyfriend, over the phone, but then it kind of seems like she's actually been just a really upper class prostitute for him when he shows up later.
Yeah. It seems like it's somewhere between prostitute and sugar daddy. Like, it seems like they were somewhat, like, I wouldn't say devoted to each other, but it was a bit more exclusive. But then also, he straight up calls her like, no, you were only doing this for the money. That's a prostitute.
Yeah. And also, we find out as they're starting to have sex that there was a wiretap, and there's people in the basement listening to what they're doing. And at first you're thinking, oh, is this the feds? Is this that? Turns out this is actually the boyfriend who's been tapping her apartment because he's the jealous type and wants to keep an eye on what she's doing, which comes up a little bit later.
So can I have to state the one thing that was throwing me off so much, even in this early bit, because I was willing to play ball. The soundtrack choice they made for showing the surveillance tech and showing, like, the technological... Yeah, it's effectively just someone just pressing, like, 3 keys on an old synth that just beep, boop, beep, boop. Like, I hated it. I hated everything about this soundtrack choice. It also, just as the opening titles are rolling, they choose the stereotypical future font for back in the day. Yes. Like, it's all very block letters. It just feels so cheap. And I maybe it feels better back in 1971, but looking back on it now, both of those in concert, it feels so TV movie cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would fit if it was actually like a pulpy sci-fi movie, but it's not sci-fi. I mean, the point of it's literally, we have this technology today. Like, this is what's happening. So, yeah, I mean, the whole relationship with her, though, like, he basically admits that, this place is quite good. I could rob this place. And she's like, just don't tell me about it. I don't want to be a part of it, but I'm not going to stop or care. And, they end up having sex again. And then a bit later, he sees her again. They make some small talk in bed. And this is the recording that's played back when the jealous boyfriend / sugar daddy comes over. And he's playing this tape back because they were talking about the job. And he's like, hey, I know you're going to rob this place. So,
this is like an hour into the movie, like just before they do the heist. That's when he shows up and just
I'm just going through this all now because I don't really care about jumping backwards and forwards.
No, for sure. But he's basically like, look, I've got it all on tape. I don't care if you rob the place. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to use this as blackmail so that the girl has to go with me.
Yeah. And, Anderson kind of says, well, what about her choice in this? And she kind of just makes it clear that, yeah, the wise choice is to go with the guy with the money because that's more dependable. You're going to keep, she shouldn't say this out loud, but the implication being you're addicted to this, because he offers to say he'll quit and stop doing it and not do the job. And she just doesn't believe him. She's like, no, I'm going to go with him. And even though this guy is awful to her, he's calling her a whore repeatedly. He's a nasty piece of shit, but ultimately she still says, no, I'm going to stick with him. So she leaves with him to go on vacation. They go somewhere sunny whilst this job's been pulled off. And that's how that wraps up. And I could not tell you how little I cared about this relationship or how little I cared about this showdown with the boyfriend character.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever he is.
No, he showed up and I was like, finally, the fly in the soup, the thing that's going to mess it all up. This is the guy who they didn't account for or whatever. And then he's just like, nah, I don't care. Like, I'll leave the plot right now if you want me to. And he's like, yeah, okay, bye. And then it's done. We never come back. And I'm like, all right, cool. Glad we had that moment, guys.
Yeah, well, because there's two big things to try to ramp up tension with. One is that, although they immediately get rid of it. So it's not a factor anymore. He's not even thinking about her while he's doing the heist, which is what I think most movies would do, is have him still wrestling with the idea of, should I give up to go and be with the love of my life, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Right? So you've got that. And then the other big thing that's introduced is that part of the job, so he goes around getting the different people involved. He goes to Christopher Walken. You're good with alarms and shit. You can handle that. He goes to some other characters we'll get to, and we'll talk about them individually. But the one I want to get to now is he goes to, like, the mob, I guess we'll call them, like this organized crime family. And they're, like, respectful of him because, like, hey, he helped one of our boys back in the day before he went to prison or something. So we're going to listen to him, see what he's got to say. And he basically wants funding to do the job. And says, hey, I've got this job, this apartment building. And the corrupt lawyer who works with this family, he's like telling the sort of the mob boss guy, he's like, hey, like, even if we get this amount from this job, our cut, if we get 50-50 and the amount we get is this, that's still less than our worst gambling joint makes in a week. Yeah. Like, is it really worth the risk of getting into this petty thievery bullshit? We're bigger than that. We're beyond that. And it kind of seems like a little bit of a combination of the mob boss being, like, a little bit excited by the idea of the crime just because he likes it, but also this idea of, like, oh, like, let's be proper gangsters again and be a part of this. And then also, because we spend so much time on this, of, I have to go to the main boss, like his dad, to go and get approval. But his dad's like this 89-year-old man who can barely speak, so he's not really getting approval. He's just like talking to what is effectively a corpse and justifying to himself why he's going to go through with this and give the funding to Sean Connery.
Yeah, the dad is just sitting there wrapped up in like an entire cocoon, and he's like, oh, the Johnson boy broke a tooth last week. It's like, okay, the Johnson boy's 32 years old now, Dad. Like, you have dementia. Don't worry about it. And then, the scene just continues as if he's essentially talking to a plank of wood, just venting out his feelings of what he wants to do. And that's fine for character development. But again, we spend so much time doing it. It's like, why don't we just develop the character without having to go and do this stuff?
Well, I'd be fine if it led to anything, but it's not even like... Right. Like, it's not even like... Because the big thing that comes out of this is that when he gets back in the car with Sean Connery, he says, all right, we'll do the job. He says 60-40 first, and then Connery's like, nah, 50-50. And he's like, all right, 50-50. But you need to take one of our men. And Connery's like, yeah, fine. I get it. He's like, no, you don't understand. I want you to take one of my men so you can kill him on the job. Because he's been a bit of a nuisance. He keeps dropping people. It's making us look bad. It's bad for, optics and the police and all that. So we want you to burn him. Take him out. And, like, obviously he's reluctant. He doesn't like the idea of it. And I thought... Like, okay, but he's going to agree because it adds tension, and it means there's this wild card, this violent, mafia guy on the squad when they're going into the job and all that. But I swear we spend an extra 2 scenes where he's not even decided to say yes yet, where he goes to meet this potential mob guy in the sauna, and they have this like standoff where the mob guy doesn't want to like take his clothes off, and he's like, and it's just him waving his dick at him, basically to say, hey, I'm in charge, I'm the boss now, dog, right? That's what he's saying.
I I thought for sure that sequence was finally him wising up to the idea of like making sure you're not wearing a wire, because literally every other goddamn character in this movie is wearing a wire. But finally he's like, no, take off your clothes so we can make sure you're on the up and up. But no, he's just doing it to wave his dick around.
To be fair,
that's it.
To be fair, none of the main characters are wearing wires, but almost every scene where he goes to speak to someone, including like even when this mob boss is talking to his dad, like the old mob boss, it'll cut to like someone in the scene that's like an extra who's got like a pen or something. It's like a nurse for the old man.
Yeah,
has got a pen in her pocket, and then the camera like goes to over to a boat where there's like the FBI's listening to them, and basically the whole running thing with the surveillance is that they all hear like little bits separately of this Anderson heist plan, but because that's not why they're doing the surveillance, none of them care. None of them even think to following up on it. They're just listening because they're listening to the mob boss, or they're listening to the antiques dealer who we're about to get to, you know, all this stuff, and that's kind of it.
And again, that leads to the not to get too deep into it now, but the whole end of the movie, you're thinking like, okay, all of these different agencies know something about this heist, so theoretically you would think that the ending of the movie would be the heist goes like super successfully, they're out on the run, and now these heists or all these agencies are like, oh no, we had the info once we all pulled together and they slipped right through our fingers. Even with all of our surveillance, we weren't able to catch this guy. But no, that's not the movie. We don't do anything even close to that.
No, the ending of the movie, after, I mean, because we'll get to everything else, but the actual final little segment of the movie is once all the heists went down and it's in the papers and people know what the crime is, all these different agencies go, wait, that Anderson guy popped up in some of our surveillance and we didn't. Like, people are going to start looking into everything this guy did, and all of our wiretaps are illegal. Erase the tapes. So the movie ends with them all erasing their tapes because they were all doing surveillance illegally without warrants. And this like came so out of nowhere for me, where I'm like, this doesn't feel like something you were setting up at all. With like, I get the idea of like the corruption of it, and this idea of like no one's playing fair. And whatever else, and obviously you have the character in the middle, the boyfriend sugar daddy character who's doing surveillance illegally on his own, but like I don't think the movie really, like, you know, like it feels like the main character should be talking more about why he tries to get away with things, because he thinks like the system is like, you know, pinned against them, and even like when they're doing things you know, illegally, they're still get to be in the right, quote unquote. But the ending just kind of feels like, okay, yeah, all these agencies are being a bit shady by doing these illegal wiretaps, and they're covering it up. But I just didn't get like a gut punch from that, because it doesn't really feel like it impacted anything for the main characters the entire time. I don't really care about the justice after the fact when the main character's already dead. It's irrelevant to me as the audience.
Right. Exactly. That's the problem, is that they do all of this stuff set up beforehand of all these different agencies listening in, but ultimately what we're looking at in the end is some completely different storyline, some other thing that had nothing to do with this heist and nothing else happening, and them saying like, oh, well, we gotta, it's essentially just a quick little blink over into like, tune in next week for this other anthology story where we follow the other, it has nothing to do with the story we were just told.
Yep, no, I agree. So yeah, I mean, Martin Balsam's character, sorry, say that properly. So he's an antique dealer who Sean Connery is going to go to for him to not only be part of the job, but his main purpose is because he can appraise things, is to be like, hey, what's worth taking in any of these houses? And he's immediately willing to do it. Now, the big thing with this character, though, is that he's very camp, right? He's very effeminate. He's got kind of that sort of way he's holding his hands, the way he's talking. They're clearly going for a particular archetype here of a gay man, which isn't inherently a bad thing in and of itself. I do think that it does a couple of things with the character that feel a little bit like, I'm not so sure this is meant in good taste here or there. I'm primarily thinking of when he's going around all the apartments and like sort of pretending to be a decorator and asking their opinion on things, and he opens the door to what's clearly another gay man, and it plays it as this like, oh, another gay man, like, and he's like giving him this eye, and I'm like, this feels like a bunch of straight people wrote this, and they're rating what their vision of a gay person is, and it felt very stereotypical to me.
So my litmus test for whether or not I think it's okay or not is I try to flip the roles. I try to say, okay, if it were a straight situation, so if he were straight and like a buxom blonde opened up the door very seductively and was like that, so I don't think inherently that much is bad. What I think is pushing the limit is that when this other gay guy opens up the door, in the background, it looks like his apartment is like a BDSM dungeon. And that's the point where I'm like, all right, it feels like you're making connotations here that like they're all depraved or something like that. And that's a bit much.
Yeah. And there is like the doorman just casually drops a homophobic slur on him to describe him as if it's just like a way you would describe someone casually.
Yeah. A couple of them do that at certain points. And I'm like, wow, all right, sure.
Yeah. And there was a couple of characters who are racist to a couple of the team members who are black. And that's something that comes up as well. Because Sean Connery goes to a guy who's meant to be a good driver, hires him, and he brings in someone else to help as well. So there's like a whole team forming. And he's being
investigated by CIA or whatever because he's part of the Black Panthers. So you got that little extra racist stuff on top of it.
Yeah, so they're all joined together, and then the big thing that throws a wrench into it is this mob guy who goes by the name Socks, is his code name. He comes in. And immediately, everyone's kind of tense about it, and it's what's his name, Spencer, the black guy. He's the one that stands up and says, "I think I'm out. I don't think I can trust him. I don't think I can trust that he'll follow your orders." So Sean Connery immediately turns and says, "Hey, Socks, go get a pizza and a couple of beers." And he gets in his face and he's like, "Follow your orders, or you go back to your mob boss and you explain why you're not doing the job." And he basically makes him sort of back down. And when he leaves, he does sit down with everyone else and goes, "All right, he's here. That was the price of admission to like get the backing from the mob. But the other price is that I have to kill him." And this causes a little bit of like a debate where like Christopher Walken clearly feels uncomfortable with doing any violence. He doesn't want to do anything like that. And clearly Sean Connery doesn't want to do violence in general to people. He doesn't want to hurt the innocents or anything like that. What's interesting though is the Black Panther immediately says, "Hey, I'll do it if you want." I'm game for it.
He called me some racial slurs. I'm down. Whatever.
But I think this scene is like an example of like a missed opportunity, because I feel like a scene where a character like we care about who has a complex moral code sits down with his team who all feel uncomfortable with the idea of like, to do this job, we have to be willing to murder this man. I think that should be something that leads to a bigger debate where people are for or against it. And it also leads to another big problem with the entire concept of this movie is none of these characters, not one of them, from what I can recall, have like a "I need to do this or my life is ruined" sort of stakes. Like all of this comes out of Sean Connery just wants to do it because he's addicted, and that's fine for him, right? That's fine for that to be his thing. But it's kind of wild to me that every single person he recruits doesn't actually need it. Like Christopher Walken's got a job at a hardware store. He seems like he's doing all right. The antiques dealer, he's got an antiques dealership, so he's probably okay, relatively speaking.
Oh, yeah.
Like it feels like everyone doesn't actually need this job. So it does mean that when you get to this part of the movie where I feel there should be a debate of, are we willing to do this? The reason why they should ultimately agree to do it is because they need to do the job for the money, because they need it for some reason. And that stakes just isn't there. It just isn't there.
I would be fine with it just being him like calling in favors and like really like saying, "Oh, we could do this, we could do that," because I am completely accepting that there's just a certain sort of mindset of people who they just don't want to do this stuff legitimately. They want to take the easy way out. They want to do this crimes, whatever you want to call it. And he almost has a conversation with Christopher Walken on that front where he's like, "Look, it's our moral obligation to steal because once you get insurance involved, like everyone's better off at the end of it. The insurance companies can get promotions or whatever like that." And he tries to justify it, but then Christopher Walken's like, "Is any of that true?" He's like, "No, absolutely not. We're doing this because of other reasons." But I feel like the missed opportunity for me in trying to fit in with the surveillance theme is he went into this place, he got caught, but it is still an addiction for him. He gets out. Now all of the surveillance is upped 10, 20, 30 times more than it was before. And so he still has this urge, but everyone is telling him, you can't do it the old way. You can't do it the way you did before. And he has to maneuver through that. He has to try to feed his addiction despite the fact that like things have changed and things are different now. And we get to see how he adapts to that. None of that's here. None of that matters. That is not the story they went with. Instead, yeah, it's just this weak sort of, I'm putting together a team, and then without him even saying anything, they just say, son of a bitch, I'm in. Like, that's it.
Yeah, like either there has to be a debate where they all reluctantly agree because they need to do the job, right? And that would, like, you know, and if they need to do the job, then there's already stakes from the start that aren't there in this movie of like why they need to join. Okay, you want to tell me they're just all doing it because they like the sound of it? That's fine. But in that case, he probably shouldn't tell them that this is like something he has to do. Maybe he tells like one person that he trusts, but you know, and then the tension comes from like how they're going to react when he does kind of go to do the kill or something. You know, like it feels like the way it's set up, it's failing on two different fronts, and it can't resolve either of them without changing something.
I'll also throw out there that the movie does a complete failure of making it feel like he has to do it in any meaningful way outside of his addiction, because he gets out and the very first thing he does before he even visits his girlfriend is he swings by a bank and says, hey, I'd like to get a credit card. And he does. He gets the card. There is no issue here with him being an ex-felon or anything like that. He seems like he is absolutely able to start his life completely over and do everything fine. If we had done just a little bit of like, the world is stacked against ex-felons, there's this thing where like it's hard for him to be able to get back on his feet, then that would at least give something as to why this feels like the only legitimate means to move forward.
And I think what they were going for there is that he wants to look good for his girlfriend, so he gets a credit card so he can buy a nice suit, and then that's what he wears when he goes to see her. That's the sequence of events.
I mean, fair, but that's still the problem. Like, I know. I mean, nothing stopping him.
That's right. There's like nothing getting in his way, and the only thing getting in his way is his own desire to do something, which again could be fine if we explore that, and that's what we're sort of saying. If we're seeing people try to talk him out of it, you know, we're seeing people try to say, you don't have to do this, you can do this instead, and then watch him kind of like go down the, you know, basically fall off the wagon when he's tempted kind of thing. Like any of these things would work. Or you're focusing so much on the surveillance side of things that have that be a constant thing where, you know, because that first scene when they're in the bus station and the security guard thinks they're up to something, like, maybe keep running with that. Maybe have the idea where, like, he is actually keeping clean until someone assumes he's doing something and he feels mistreated. So he's sort of like, well, damn you, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I'll do it. If you think I'm a thief, I'm going to be a thief. Or, like, I'm just throwing things out at this point that are different movies, but it's lacking any of these things to try and give any of it depth, and it's really frustrating. And honestly, once we get to the point here where after we've introduced these characters, it's like, it's basically time for the heist. Like, yeah. And honestly, like, I mean, the highlights, because like we said, it cuts to like the people in the apartments giving their testimonies to the police afterwards, but most of it boils down to they come in, maybe they punch someone once. I guess the major plot points, well, one is that Socks gets kind of rough with like a woman, and Connery has to step in and like fight him off, and that's just sort of like building that potential tension. And then the other big plot point, though, is that one of the families has a kid who's sick and has to stay in his room where he's got like sort of like breathing control apparatus or whatever. And this kid, after kind of like going toe to toe verbally with them a little bit and like denying his safe code because he's got a coin collection, he's got a ham radio which he then uses to report that there's a robbery. And I guess the one detail I like about that is that I like that it wasn't just immediately police show up. I like that they showed that someone who got that call on the ham radio had to try and like relay it to the police, and it was kind of like messy because it's not really like a channel you're supposed to like go through.
From the way you're describing it, I agree. I think that that's a great aspect that they could explore there. I hate the fact that it's just an extended joke.
Yeah, it's a comedy scene. Yeah, no, you're right.
Because you hook up with the operator, and the operator, it's two operators talking to each other because the ham radio guy's in Hawaii or whatever. And it's just two operators talking to each other about, like, what was this guy's name again? Did he call collect? We can't take collect calls. Where is he trying to get to? And what's this guy's name again? And it goes on for like 30 to 60 seconds before finally the guy's like, I'll just pay. I'll pay for the call. For God's sakes, please connect me with someone.
I agree. And it's a thing where like they're not aware that the police are there yet. Like, you know, like they've got Pop as like pretending to be the door guy so that he's keeping an eye out on the cameras. And they say
I need this joke. Pop, obviously he's brought in kind of as just like we need someone to be the door, and he says that he's good with anything. But I love the fact that as they put him at the door, Duke and everyone else in the gang who's wearing masks, Duke comes up and he's like, "Are you good to go, Pop?" And he's just like, "I sure am, Duke. Duke, you've got this under control, Duke." And I'm like, boy, it's a good thing there aren't recording devices everywhere in this place.
Yeah, that's Anderson's first name. Technically it's his nickname, but it's Anderson he's talking about. So they don't know the police are there, and we just cut to shots outside where there's like cop cars lined up at the ends of the streets. They've got a big blockade, like they're prepared, they're ready to go in, or at least catch them when they come out. Like the entire goddamn police force of the city's here, pretty much. And then we get to the whole, you're going to climb up to that other building and like zip line across and all that. And I cannot tell you how unexciting this like climbing and zip lining is. Like them getting their equipment and like putting it together and like fumbling as they almost get across. Like, I don't know how they made this like so dull to watch, but it feels like I'm watching like an amateur documentary about like how you do zip lining or something. It just didn't feel exciting.
I mean, on top of the fact that it's very slow paced, very like long cuts and all that, on top of it, there's no sense of geography. They set up now all of a sudden there's this other building off to the side. So you have no idea like how close they are, how long this is going to take, nothing like that. Well, it's just
the big thing, obviously geography is important, but I think what the real thing that's leading to though is the idea that, again, there's no stakes as they're doing this. Like, the stakes really should be that, like, one of the bad guy, one of the heist group are watching at a window, so they're having to wait until he turns around to try and zipline across and not be seen. Like, give them some kind of obstacle that makes it feel like they have to try and do it stealthily or something where they can almost get caught. And the tension is them being seen by the bad guys and alerting them too soon. But instead, like, they're fumbling around, they're landed on the other roof, and nothing, like, it doesn't, like, it just kind of feels like it doesn't matter how long this takes. It doesn't feel like there's a ticking time clock to any of this, so that there's any risk of them being seen. It just feels like, I don't know, we're just mumbling through the process.
I had a slightly different feeling. I did feel like there was a clock on this. I did feel like there was a deadline, but every time I felt like the deadline was supposed to have already hit, it just kept going. Like, there was always, it was the point where it's like, okay, we've got all the stuff, it's all loaded up in the cart or whatever. And then they just keep going. They just sit around and don't like leave. And I'm like, what are we waiting for at this point in the story, except for the cops to move into position?
I think he's trying to get into one last safe, and there's this guy that won't give up his safe code, and that plays out for a little bit. It's not that exciting though.
No.
As they're getting ready to leave though, and they know the police are around at this point, there's one nice little bit where like the police are about to open a door or check a door, and they realize that they're probably there, so that like one of them runs up and like locks the door, so they can't actually open it. And it's like, okay, so we know they're on the other side of the door, but we've got like a minute to get to the elevator and try and get out via the truck or whatever. The big thing that happens here is that Socks, as they're walking to the elevator, says, "Hey, there's hostages, we should take them as shields." And obviously no one else likes that plan. They're like, all get close up for all their eyes. So Connery says, "Yeah, get the sick kid." But then when Socks starts walking towards him, he just shoots him in the back. But this gunshot makes the police all just jump into like, all right, we're storming the place because they've started shooting. So Sean Connery gets shot in the back. The others do get to the truck, which has a van inside it, so they eventually drive out the back of the truck in the van, but very quickly it tumbles over and they're clearly all dead or badly injured, so like they don't get away.
Yep. And then Sean Connery, because he got shot, he actually managed to make it to the elevator, and I guess the cops just didn't check the elevator. It's like he jammed the elevator door so it couldn't go down to their floor or whatever. He
ends up hiding in the fireplace, and to be fair,
of his girlfriend's apartment. Yeah.
To be fair, like one of the better cinematic shots of the movie is like the camera just focusing on the logs in the fireplace, and you just see the blood dripping, and it's like, oh, that's a nice little reveal that he's up there.
It's right after the cops step in there and say, I guess they didn't touch this place, and then it leaves and it pans over to that. It's a very well done shot, and at that point it does have a bit of tension to it because how is he going to get out of this? Is he going to be found? Whatever else.
Yeah, honestly, the idea of him sneaking about the building injured, trying to not get caught by the police, is definitely the most excited I ever got. And then obviously just immediately, he comes stumbling out.
You know what I would have actually loved is the idea of during all of the interviewing scenes, all those times where like we cut over to somebody there and they're giving their testimony as to what happened in the hotel lobby. you get just, you see that he was always right there. Like he's sneaking through the lobby stealthily so that nobody can notice him. And you get to cut to like them giving their testimony in the background of his shots, and you get to see him manage to make his way out. Obviously, not what they did, but it would have been cool.
Yeah, there's things that could have been cool, but we're not. There's one little detail when they're all like the police are all setting up to do stuff. It cuts to an ambulance at one point who are expecting some injuries, and there's this is such this little visual detail that's completely devoid of anything that's like in the movie. It's just a good detail on its own in a vacuum. Is that the ambulance, like paramedic or whoever, he's got a pillow for the stretcher. And it's got a blood stain on it, but he's getting a pillow slip out to cover it. And I just like that detail of, oh, they're reusing the same pillow that someone's like died on. They're just putting a new slip on it so that no one can see the stain.
I honest to God, I didn't even notice that. It sounds like a Naked Gun bit. It just sounds like that sounds like we got defunded.
No,
Here we go, just use the same pillow.
I don't know if it sounds that comedic, but I do agree that, yeah, tonally it feels like maybe it belongs in a satirical movie as opposed to what I would want from a Sidney Lumet movie. And maybe this is him trying to do something a little bit different and it's just not quite clicking with how he makes movies.
I mean, look, we all know that IMDb genres are the most meaningless thing ever because they will take the smallest thing and blow it up. This isn't even listed as a comedy, or like satire or anything like that. So I don't know if it is anything at all supposed to be taken in that satirical sense, but
I wouldn't, if I was putting this in a genre, I'd say thriller. It's a heist movie, it's a thriller, but there is definitely these scenes or these moments or these things that are trying to be more silly or comedic, and it just does not work. And it's either cringy, unfunny, or at worst slightly problematic at points. Like that's like the levels we get to. And the movie ultimately he gets carted out on the stretcher because he collapses and he's dying.
Well, they go down into the basement and they find the original wiretap.
That's right,
from the boyfriend, and they hear heavy breathing and like groaning because he's badly injured, and they go back up into the room. They find him on the floor, and he recaps the line that the girlfriend told him is that he's always hammering away at a locked door, to basically say he always wants what he can't have and ignoring what he does have.
Yeah. Which is a fine statement if it felt like a character drama where it was the whole thing was setting up that point. But honestly, he doesn't feel well developed enough for that to feel like it lands in any meaningful way at this point, which is a shame.
The only other thing I wanted to bring up is Pop. He's just got the best wrap up to his story, where all the cops come in and they're like, "Hey, get us in that elevator, Mr. Doorman." And then Pop just like walks halfway over there and he's like, "I give up. I'm involved in the heist. It was me. Send me back to jail. I've been institutionalized. I want to go back."
Yeah, I think it definitely implies that he's not got anywhere to go, because he phones Anderson halfway through the movie and says, "Hey, can I come stay with you?" And Anderson makes up an excuse why he can't, but then he says, "Everything's all right. I'm doing fantastic." I'm like, if you're doing fantastic, why are you asking to stay with someone? It feels like you might be homeless.
He's like, hey, he literally says, "Can I stay with you?" And he makes up something about the sister, and then he's like, "Oh, but like, do you have a place to go, Pop?" He's like, "Oh, of course I got a place. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine." And it's like, well, that's not why you called, though, buddy. You called for a place to stay.
So yeah, Anderson's basically dying on the stretcher, and like the movie does the ending we already talked about with the tapes being erased, and that's kind of it. And it just, the whole thing lands with a bit of a thud, and it's never that engaging. The characters are never that deep, and it's especially noticeable after the last 5 movies, where all the characters in every single film felt super rich, super deep. The camera work is, I mean, the camera's not bad. I think that's the thing here with this movie, is that there's still talented people involved, so it's not like a complete stinker. This is not like, a 2 out of 10. It's nothing like that, because there's still enough like baseline talent that it gets to like a very competent level in a lot of ways, especially technically, but it just does not have the great writing, the great characters, and it doesn't give enough opportunity for the fantastic direction that Lumet normally shows off. And it feels like he's been a little experimental, and I appreciate that, but I don't think the experimental stuff in this, with the sounds and the cutting back to the interviews and stuff, works that well.
Yeah. Also, I don't know how familiar Sidney Lumet is with like technology and all that stuff going on, but it definitely feels like he was overhyping just this technology that is surveillance, like to make it feel like sci-fi, when maybe we're just living in a, post 9/11 world. We're super used to surveillance all the time, but it doesn't feel like it's as big of a deal as he's making it out to be.
I mean, this came out the same year as Clue, put that in perspective of like, you know, that's also a movie about recordings and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you know, not surveillance per se, but it's definitely. I was thinking about the fact that these are movies from the same time that are using like these, you know, as the spools of tape spinning as you hear the audio play. It's very much a thing from the time period. David, what are you rating the Anderson tapes out of 10?
Oh, it's not good, Pete. It's not good. I mean, I guess I am kind of torn on the fact of I really didn't enjoy myself. I didn't have a good time with the movie. I'm not going to come out of this positively recommending it for any real reason, but I can recognize that there is a technical skill to it. It does feel like people behind the camera and people in front of the camera had the technical know-how of making a good movie. It's just I couldn't care about the plot any less if I tried. So it's kind of got to balance out on there. I think I'm going to end up at a 5.5. It's just above the middle mark for me, but that is wholly carried by the fact that technically it is a well done film.
I think I'm going to go with a flat 5. It's very mediocre. Obviously, yeah, there's some technical skill, there's good actors, there's some good shots, but the script and the lack of like real stakes or tension. Even when they're doing things that in theory should be the stakes and tension. Oh, there's this wild card character that we have to kill, that he might get dangerous. There's this, there's that. It just feels like it's so lacking and it's so dull. The back third of a movie that's a heist movie should be the most exciting part, should be the most exciting thing possible, and it's just nothing. Like, you know, the movie opens with Sean Connery describing going into a safe like it's sex, like the build up and the payoff, and this movie is so sexless in that regard in this last third of the movie where I'm just not feeling a goddamn thing. So I just gotta go with 5 out of 10, which it gets up to that high because yes, there's technical skill, there's good camera work at times, there's things like that stick out, but that's it.
So I think we're probably in agreement here, but does it make the cut?
No, it does not.
No, yeah, I agree. I think this is very clearly cut from the collection. It's just not there.
Nope. It's not getting in there. It's not cutting it close. It's just cut. So
yep,
that's what it is. You know, but we were bound to have a weaker film eventually from Lumet. But I mean, hey, he's had a good run this season.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I think no segment we've ever done has gotten as many above 9s as he has gotten. Like, he has absolutely been top tier there. So it's good to have that, but everybody's got to take a dip eventually.
Yeah, and we have one episode remaining for Sidney Lumet season 1, that is, of course. We'll be back at some point with a season 2. But the last film we're doing this season is Child's Play, not to be confused with the Chucky movie from the 1980s. This is a 1972 film, I believe, set at some sort of boarding school or military school, something like that. So we'll see how that is. This isn't one that I've heard talked about too much, so it could kind of go either way. But curious to check it out and see how it is. But that is what we're going to round out the season with next week. And then we're on to Christmas movies for a month before we get back into another season. Well, I mean, Christmas is a season, I guess, technically, but you know what I mean. So that is the plan on Collector's Cut. Over in ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment, our sci-fi movie podcast, we've been doing a bunch of new releases these past few weeks. Begonia, Predator Badlands, the Running Man remake. We've got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind coming up over there. So lots of good things to look at over on that show. And if you want to support all the stuff we make and help keep it coming, you can do that over at Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, or via YouTube membership, and get access to a monthly exclusive show we do called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst things ever made. And that is a hoot.
Yeah. Hoot. That's one way to say it.
That's what I'm going to call it. But we definitely drop a lot of F-bombs on that show because we're usually very angry, if nothing else. But if you like the idea of that, or you want to get the bonus rating segments we do for all of the episodes now, you can get that on those as well. Plus those bonuses for other stuff, like Streams After Midnight that I do with Tim, the horror movie podcast. If that sounds like fun, go check out that too. But that's the show. That has been the Collector's Cut. It's been the Anderson Tapes. We'll see you next time for Child's Play. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.